Today we will be looking at a movie set in a dystopian future where enormous monsters known as Kaiju emerge from an interdimensional portal in the Pacific Ocean, threatening humanity's existence. To combat these colossal creatures, mankind develops an equally colossal defense system called Jaegers, gigantic robots piloted by pairs of skilled fighters. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe. The movie starts in 2013. A fissure that opens up beneath the Pacific Ocean leads to another dimension. A huge monster emerges from the fissure and decimates large areas of San Francisco. The beast is destroyed by human armed forces after several days, and countless lives lost. However, as other creatures start to emerge from the rift and start assaulting coastal cities all over the Pacific, what once appeared to be an isolated onslaught intensifies. The Jaeger program, a collection of enormous mechanical monsters designed to stop the invaders. The original pilot per Jaeger test was a failure because the test subjects could not bear the pressure and strain of operating such a large robot by themselves. It was subsequently agreed that each Jaeger would be controlled by two pilots, whose memories would be linked together in a drift, to coordinate their motions while controlling the enormous vehicles. As the Jaegers get to work, they start to turn the tide and eliminate the Kaiju monsters. But just when the tide of the fight appears to be shifting in favor of humanity, the Kaiju start to attack more frequently, and with more ferocity. 7 years after the fissure first appeared, in the year 2020, one of the most well-known Jaeger teams, Raleigh Beckett, Charlie Hunnam, and his older brother Yancey, Diego Klatenhoff, have achieved hero status. They have a perfect track record of taking down Kaijus. Pilots of the Gypsy Danger Jaeger are dispatched to intercept a Category 3 Kaiju that is headed for Anchorage. The squad will face a difficulty because the beast is bigger and more potent than past Category 3s. The Becketts are instructed that protecting Anchorage should come first, even though the information on their monitors indicates a fishing boat is in the attack's path. The two defy orders and manage to salvage the fishing boat, but as a result of their actions, the Kaiju viciously attacks them and has a head made with the intention of penetrating the Danger's chest. Yancey is killed as the Kaiju rips off the Gypsy Danger's left arm and a section of the helmet during the combat. Gypsy Danger is barely able to be piloted by Raleigh alone, but he manages to conclude the conflict by killing the adversary with the robot's massive plasma weapon. Later, Raleigh takes the Jaeger to a deserted beach, where it eventually shatters. Raleigh exits the combat with battle-related wounds. Because of the drift, Jaeger pilots suffer the same wounds as their mechanical counterparts, then collapses on the sand, worn out and devastated. Raleigh leaves the Jaeger program after the incident and looks for work anywhere he can. 5 years later, he gets employment as a construction worker in the western coast of the United States. Since Raleigh joined the Jaeger program 5 years ago, a number of nations have urged for the program's cancellation due to the skyrocketing number of Jaeger pilot fatalities and rising Kaiju attacks, and the astronomical expense of maintaining its funding. Many people believe that constructing coastal walls will keep them safe, but the program's director, Stacker Pentecost, Idris Elba, contends that the world's leaders are gravely misguided. Despite Pentecost's assertion that the program is still feasible, it is moved to Hong Kong and granted another 8 months of financing before being officially discontinued. Raleigh, who is constructing a wall outside Sitka, Alaska, learns from news reports that an Australian Kaiju has breached the defenses surrounding Sydney Harbour. Fortunately, a Jaeger named Striker Eureka, who had previously been transferred to Hong Kong, was still stationed nearby and was able to defeat the monster. Raleigh is shocked when a helicopter lands close to his work site and asks him to accompany Pentecost after viewing the news story. Raleigh is hesitant to reapply for the Jaeger program, but Pentecost persuades him that he belongs in the cockpit. Following that, Raleigh is sent to the Hong Kong base, also known as the Shatter Dome, where he meets Mako Mori, Rinko Kikuchi. Raleigh is also introduced to 2 scientists by Pentecost. One of them, Dr. Newton Geisler, Charlie Day, is an ardent Kaiju fan. The other is Dr. Gottlieb, Bern Gorman, a more practical man. The 3-pilot Crimson Typhoon, from China, Cherno Alpha, from Russia, Striker Eureka, fresh from its stay in Australia, and to Raleigh's amazement, Gypsy Danger had gathered inside the Shatterdome with their crews. She has now been rebuilt and upgraded for more intense fighting since her encounter 5 years ago. Raleigh presses Pentecost to explain their exact strategy. According to Pentecost, a strategy is being developed to drop a nuclear warhead into the space between dimensions. If it is successful, the channel will be closed off, preventing any more kaiju from entering. Geisler and Gottlieb reconnect with Pentecost shortly after. Gottlieb asserts that the quantity of kaiju emerging through the gap is growing mathematically. Geisler, on the other hand, is interested in finding out if they can drift with the kaiju's brain in order to learn more about it. He is eager to test his theory after receiving a portion of one, but Pentecost refuses and chooses to go with Gottlieb's investigation. Raleigh is charged with assisting in the search for a replacement without his brother. Raleigh spars with her after getting Pentecost's approval and is impressed by her skill. Gypsy Danger's test run inside the Shatterdome seems to be going well until Mako gets stuck in a horrific flashback during the drift session and nearly triggers the Jaegers' plasma weapon. Raleigh gains a better understanding of Mako and Pentecost as a result of the encounter. In the meantime, Dr. Geisler has set up a rudimentary connecting device and has connected to the kaiju brain in his laboratory. Geisler finds the strain of the drift to be rather overwhelming, and Gottlieb turns it off. Geisler informs Pentecost and his troops that he was able to see through the portal to the other side thanks to the link. Pentecost sends him to Hong Kong to hunt for a man by the name of Hannibal Chow after giving him a little card. Geisler encounters Chow, an American hiding behind a false identity. Kaiju remnants are Chow's specialty, and he buys them from combat locations and sells them on the underworld market. Geisler informs Chow that he desires a whole brain. Chow objects to the notion since it is practically impossible to recover a kaiju brain because its skull bone is too thick to penetrate fast and because ammonia contamination renders the brains unusable. Geisler continues to dodge Chow's haughtiness and skeptical attitude by suggesting that he can use a kaiju's secondary brain instead. After they finish talking, 2 Category 4 kaijus appear close to Hong Kong. Crimson Typhoon, the Cherno Alpha, and Striker Eureka are dispatched by Pentecost to combat the beasts and defend the city's coastline, respectively. The 2 kaiju that have surfaced have more accessories, contrary to what had been suggested by talk that the kaiju were getting more hazardous. One has a sack in its mouth filled with acid, which dissolves Cherno Alpha's armor and renders it utterly useless. The largest of the 2 kaiju attacks Cherno. When they are submerged, the monster destroys their reactor, drowning both pilots, and they are vanquished. Striker Eureka's father-son pilots disregard their directive to defend Hong Kong in favor of attacking the animals. However, the second kaiju unleashes an EMP burst that knocks Striker Eureka and the Shatterdome's machinery offline. Striker Eureka is doomed with 2 hours till the system can be rebooted until Raleigh offers a solution. While the more recent Jaeger models are digital, the Gypsy Danger is analog, and thus more immune to EMP attacks. Raleigh and Mako are dispatched by Pentecost. After a protracted struggle, they manage to defeat the EMP-armed kaiju, but the other kaiju ends up traveling to Hong Kong. Gypsy is able to take out the creature's acid sac and sever its tail as the battle traverses numerous buildings. But when the creature suddenly develops enormous wings and starts to carry the Jaeger into Earth's upper atmosphere, the conflict changes. They manage to smash it using a brand new weapon, a gigantic chainsword, before falling back to Earth and just barely regaining team control of the Jaeger to make a safe landing. The Eureka's pilots likewise express their gratitude and admiration as Raleigh and Mako make their way back to the Shatterdome amid applause. Plans are soon made for the Gypsy Danger and Striker Eureka to be ready to launch the warhead towards the submerged rift. Pentecost volunteers even though the stress of operating a Jaeger could be lethal to him. Geisler and Gottlieb run into the control room of the Shatterdome and explain that the plan will not succeed as the 2 Jaegers approach the rift. The failure to destroy the channel with other nuclear weapons in the past was due to the fact that the channel will only allow in a kaiju. If a warhead is dropped into the channel, it will simply deflect off the breach. 2 Category 4 kaiju protecting the rift are in conflict with the 2 Jaegers when a third kaiju, a Category 5, which is bigger and more potent than the other 2, emerges. Gypsy Danger and Striker Eureka take a beating throughout the conflict. Striker Eureka, unable to deliver the bomb, detonates it in order to eliminate the opposing kaiju and allow Gypsy Danger access to the rift. Raleigh and Mako will blow up Gypsy's nuclear reactor, and close the rift once they are inside. Gypsy manages to get past the coating that would have rejected any non-kaiju by joining the Category 5 kaiju and falling into the rift with it. Raleigh launches Mako into the kaiju dimension, while manually starting the nuclear core's explosion. Raleigh escapes in his own pod as Gypsy Danger enters the other dimension before Gypsy Danger blows up and closes the rift, putting an end to the kaiju menace for good. Both pods arrive at the surface of the Pacific Ocean. Raleigh appears to be dead for a brief moment before awakening, much to Mako's delight. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check out my other videos.